You know, that's an excellent question. I wish more people would ask. It's actually due to a felony domestic violence case that was involving someone I obviously can't reveal who it is, but let's just say it was a very high ranking officer in the United States military branch, unspecified. And this individual was charged with an absolute career ending felony domestic violence charge. And this person actually had a drinking problem, and I think it was due to deployments, and it was a direct result of trauma experienced in combat, frankly. In this person's day job, they were an absolute rock star. There was a war that was waging at the time in Iraq and Afghanistan, and this person had absolutely no defense. In fact, the military had even ponied up for a 30-day inpatient alcohol program, and less than 30 days later, we had an alcohol felony domestic violence incident, a battery, a pretty bad one too. Well, what we did in that case was, instead of sending somebody to generic counseling, and by generic counseling, I'm including domestic violence intervention programs, whether it's called Batterers Intervention Program, domestic violence intervention, whatever. They're all basically the same thing, in that the diagnostic model is, what's your name, what's your charge, go to counseling, that's your treatment. And this would be like going to the hospital and you've fallen off of a roof and the doctor says, what's your name? Okay, you get a cast on your left arm. And the person is sitting there going, wait a minute, my left arm is fine, but I think my right leg is broken in 3 or 4 places. That is exactly what's going on with court-ordered counseling. Does it look good? Yes. Is it effective? Barely. And by barely, I mean sometimes it actually does work. Usually it doesn't. What's better? Well, what we did in the felony domestic with the military officer I was describing a moment ago is we had a diagnostic evaluation, including brain imaging, performed at one of the Amen Clinic locations. They're a world leader in brain imaging psychiatric diagnostic evaluations, in addition to a series of questions and psychological tests and other things. They also perform 2 sets of brain images. Now, when you think about this and put your thinking cap on, if you wouldn't let a doctor perform surgery on you or put a cast on you for a broken bone without an x-ray, why would anybody allow a physician to give them chemical surgery on their brain in the form of medication without taking a look at it? When you think of it that way, you go, wow, you're right. That doesn't even make sense, because that was my reaction the very first time I ran into brain imaging. And so in those cases, what I specifically recommend is a brain imaging diagnostic evaluation. And I usually use Amen clinics, although I've used other clinics. Why do I recommend that? Well, I recommend it because Florida has a rule of procedure most people haven't heard of, Rule 3.992. And Section A is the felony score sheet calculation setup, so that points are assessed for various things, and then ultimately at the bottom, under Rule 3.992A, a point total is created, and if the number is greater than 44, then the sentencing judge must impose a prison sentence, unless Rule 3.992B kicks in. And under Rule 3.992B, there's a list of grounds for mitigation that justify a non-prison sentence in a felony. And in a misdemeanor case, they also justify a non-prison sanction. I've used it to negotiate for diversion programs. As much as I dislike them, sometimes it's better than prison. I've used them more frequently for negotiated dismissals, and the reason I prefer that in this scenario, in addition to the other reasons I've given previously, is that the treatment is based on that person's needs. I have a real problem with people getting treatment that's going to fail, and we know that it's going to fail before they go into it. The classic example is the alcohol treatment that's given in DUI cases. Level 1 DUI classes and follow-on counseling fail so spectacularly that people routinely with alcohol problems get more DUI arrests. So what do? We have multi-offender DUI counseling. You know, the first set of one-size-fits-all counseling failed so badly that we're going to do it again just to make sure it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense, but neither do a lot of things in the criminal justice system. So where it looks like some type of mental health treatment will help, I recommend very strongly a brain imaging based diagnostic evaluation, because when I'm sitting there, and I'll use my hand as an example, if someone's brain surface should look like my hand, you don't have to have an advanced degree in neuroimaging to notice that it doesn't look like this, okay? That's a very crude example, but that's the dramatic level of difference you see between a healthy, normal set of brain images and someone who has brain abnormalities. As an aside, every single person who is guilty of the charge that I have sent for a brain imaging evaluation since 2005, I've done more of these in criminal law than I think anybody in the world. I've not seen a single one come back with anything that looks like healthy, normal brain images. So if that's the route someone wants to go with their case, then we should really look at it as solving two birds with one stone. The legal problem, because that's what we're going to use that diagnostic evaluation for, and the treatment recommendations will solve a lot of the problem behind the problem. In other words, the reason there's a domestic in the first place. A lot of things harm the brain, a lot of things help the brain. And one of my key missions when I have cases like that, if somebody hires me to represent them to do damage control and there's an emotional problem, a brain problem of some kind, I want to make sure they get the best diagnostic evaluation they can possibly get, not some politician, some politician's idea of one size fits all, amateur medicine. I think that people deserve the best, particularly when they need help more than they've ever needed it in their lives.
For a free phone consultation, contact attorney Stephen Cobb in Florida at 850-466-1522 or visit his website at www.cobblawfirm.com.